Drew Tignanelli. This is January 2022 update. You know, Mike, there will be an update in 2040 or something, and I'll just be babbling, and you'll say, "Stop the presses, Drew. It's time for you to retire. You're
It's
doing
your last
nothing.
update. Yeah.
You're a little too old. You know, time is flying. You know, where did 2021 go? It's 2022 already."
Well, in some senses, we didn't get the 2021 we wanted, but in other senses, we did, right?
That was another good year in the market, or at least it's been. We've only got four trading days left, so I don't think any dramatic changes are going to happen. Even if the market dropped the rest of the week, it's not going to lose everything it's made this year. So why don't you tell everybody some of the numbers for 2021?
When they call this week the Santa Claus rally, right?
Well, I mean, you know, technically the month of December, especially the last 2 weeks of December.
Right. So, as Drew was alluding to, the markets have seen a pretty good year. The S&P is by far the leader of the pack when it comes to indices and growth. Depending on how you look at and calculate the dividends, and since I can't calculate the dividends in December for the year, you got to wait till after the end of the year. It's looking like it went up 26 to 28%, somewhere in that neighborhood. And you know, the Nasdaq trailed it by around 4%, and the world indices, the MSCI Global, was up 20 to 22%. So you know, regardless of where you were, the market. The equities markets were really strong for 2021, with the S&P leading the pack, but bond yields have been down. The November trailing inflation is up near 6.8%, so we'll probably end 2021 with somewhere around 7% or more in total inflation. A large part of that is the energy sector, which went up about 33.3% based on the November Bureau of Labor Statistics report. And the other thing that we are seeing is a bit of a flattening of the yield curve, with the expectations that the Feds will raise rates sometime in 2022. But Drew, as you always say, regardless of whether or not they raise rates in the future, it's a very accommodative Fed. So we don't expect them to do anything dramatic or fast.
Yeah, we wouldn't expect anything dramatic or fast. I don't think that this inflation that we're seeing is anything that's going to last long term. In other words, I don't think it's what we experienced in the 70s. That was a very different phenomena that was going on in the 70s. We had very horrible Fed rate policy. The Federal Reserve chair at that time controlled interest rates as opposed to money supply, and they didn't monitor. They actually even controlled the long-term interest rate. They actually kind of projected where it would be, whereas today's Fed, you know, they're working more off of money supply and where the economy is going and so forth. You know, the people that give me the inflation story, they call up Mike and they say, inflation. What are we doing? And my answer to them is, if inflation were a problem, bond investors would be the first to respond to it. Don't tell me Bitcoin and gold are hedges against inflation and that they're going up because of inflation. That's ridiculous. Bitcoin and gold will go up when it's supply and demand. In other words, if people keep demanding Bitcoin, it'll keep going up. If people come to the realization that Bitcoin is nothing, there's nothing to it, it's nothing but a psychological phenomena. If people come to that realization, it'll go to zero. If for some reason it becomes a standard, you know, who knows what it'll be. Maybe it'll be $1 million, maybe it'll be $500. I don't know. But anybody can create a Bitcoin any day they want to, not a Bitcoin, but they can create a cryptocurrency any day of the week. So it's not like Bitcoin is rare. Bitcoin itself is rare, but a cryptocurrency in the same ilk is not rare. Anyway, the point of the matter is, I'm not worried about inflation. It's not the key issue that I'm concerned about. I'm more concerned about the Fed and money supply. And at this point in time, not overly concerned.
And when we were talking things out a few minutes ago, you had mentioned your perspective on valuations and really leading that towards the buy sell decision. Can you talk on that?
Well, there's all metrics. You're looking at high PE ratios, the Warren Buffett one, the valuation of stocks to the GDP of our nation. Of all valuations, the market looks to be pricey. Okay. There is no doubt about that. All right. Based on historical data, right? That's the key, based on historical data. And and there have been many times in history that markets have been pricey. 2000, markets were pricey. Okay, in 1987, markets were pricey. Okay, and markets corrected violently in 1987 and over 3 years in 2000. But at the same time, Mike, I didn't know when the top was. I didn't know when the bottom was. And despite the negative week or month or year that markets were pricey and they corrected and came back, I couldn't, if I tried to predict the top and I tried to predict the bottom, if I'm wrong at all, I'm going to hurt the client more than I'm going to help them. So
Right.
it's best not to try to predict the top, not try to predict the bottom, but predict how much money you need to live on over 2, 3, 4 years, and make sure that that's a safe bundle of money that we can get a hold of if we need to while the markets come back from any type of readjustment they do. Markets aren't risky. People are irrational, right? Markets have gone down. They went down 90%, Mike, in the Great Depression between 1929 and 1931. 90%, Mike.
Yeah.
But they came back. Okay. And if you were putting all your eggs in the stock market and you had nothing to protect yourself if markets did horrible during that period of time, you would have been in serious trouble. So we always try to make sure our clients, depending on what they need to live on, they have 3, 4, 5 years of assets that we can draw on, because normally it takes 5 years max for the market to recover. Normally.
And we still plan, with around those cash flow needs over for longer periods of time. But one of the blessings we've had over the past 15, 20 years is that recoveries have been coming faster to the market when it does drop. I mean, the last one especially was, I don't remember how long it was, but it was, barely a year or less.
There are two phenomena that our clients need to always keep in mind, Mike. And that is, number one, you have the indexers. Okay. The indexers buy an index and sit. They don't ever sell. This is a phenomena that's never been in the market before. This is a phenomena that's trillions of dollars. People buy the market and they sit. And just think about that. All that stock that those indexers sit on are never going to be traded again. So the supply of that stock has been dwindled between the people who buy and sell on a regular basis. Okay. That's going to push it, price earnings and valuations up. This is a phenomenon we've never seen before. Number two, innovation and demographics. The world is becoming richer. Just in year 2000, there's probably only 800 or 900 million people in the entire world that were in the middle class. Okay. 6 billion people were alive back then. Today, there's 7 billion some people alive. And now we've got about 2 billion people living in the middle class. That's going to expand with things like mobile technology and broadband and, all the innovation that's coming. Somebody in somewhere, Timbuktu, South America, Africa, Indonesia, wherever, okay, just with a cell phone can have a business as big and as powerful as most small businesses in the United States. Just think about that. I mean, it's mind-boggling that you could, with a cell phone, you could create a little industry in your village, creating something and ship it and make money and store it on your cell phone such that the bad guys around your area can't steal it from you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, when this, and that's just one of many of the innovations that's taking place: the metaverse, artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, renewable energy. All of this is converging at this exact time. Innovation, demographics, and indexers are forcing the market at a higher valuation than we've ever experienced it before. Anyway, that
Yeah.
was probably
Well,
more than you ever hoped for.
all wonderful. And actually, let's carry that positive attitude into kind of our planning topic. And to play into the season and the new year, this being the January update, a lot of people will talk about New Year's resolutions. Resolution is a commitment to try to do something or try to do something, but it's not an action. And one of the things Drew and I were talking about is one of the commonalities in successful people, and really one of the most significant tools if somebody is in kind of a bad space. So in terms of financial planning, we're financial planners. You can certainly take this advice and apply it in that way. But this is also, kind of more broad advice. And from my perspective, something I learned in the past few years is that bad habits, I think the word is beget bad habits. But the amazing thing is good habits do the same thing. And I was recently talking to somebody who was going through kind of a rough patch and asked them to focus on just a single thing, as small as they want it to be, that would be a single small improvement in their life or their lifestyle. A number of years ago, for me, one of those things was going to bed at 9 o'clock. Making sure that no matter what I didn't get done, I went to bed so that I could be prepared for the next day. So you can apply that in your financial life and look for one small change, that can begin a pattern of small changes to improve things. And this might not be advice for some of our clients from the financial perspective that have already kind of made their way, but maybe for their family members or friends. And then Drew, you had kind of a similar way of addressing the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of the thoughts that are in your head. You can dwell on the negative thoughts, and I kind of like, attribute it to like a radio. So I can turn on that radio station that's just constantly talking about horrible things, horrible things, horrible things. But, around us, if I'm thinking of horrible things, that's what I'm going to see. If all of a sudden I start hearing the voices that talk about, well, there was a positive thing, okay? Even if it's just small. I remember a friend of mine, he started this and he said he was going to look for positive things. And one day he was getting on the freeway of Los Angeles, and he's terrified of getting on the freeway in Los Angeles because they're driving 90 miles an hour, 6 lanes, and they give you about this much room to get on and merge on the highway. And he drove up, and as he was getting on, he noticed there wasn't a car within a mile or two of that exit, not a single car. And he said it was like the first time. And he took that as that's a positive. And I mean, it's got to be that small. When you're sitting there thinking of all the negative things, you've got to take those little things and say, hey, that's a positive. I'm gonna think about that. I'm gonna remember that. That was a positive. And one of my favorite sayings is, life, things that happen to us in our life, Mike, will mold us. They'll impact us, okay? But how I respond to the things that happen to me in my life will define who I am. And there's a big difference between the things that impact us that are molding our life, but how I respond to them is going to define who I am. And so I think your point's well taken. I've heard many people take those small steps and just say, okay, I'm going to make the bed every day. I'm just going to make the bed. It's my one small step that's going to be an improvement. I'm going to make the bed. And all of a sudden it snowballs, when you do that one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to, just reiterate to our clients about scammers, thieves, fraudsters, um, or anybody listening, because this is not just to our clients, it's to anybody on our list, is that if somebody calls you on the phone, if something comes up on your computer warning you about something, if something's eliciting fear into you or greed into you, it's a high, 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 Mike,
Hi.
probability that it's a scam trying to get you to do something that's going to be negative to you. And if something comes up on your computer, if somebody calls you on the phone, says they're with the IRS, they're with Social Security, something awful's ready to happen if you don't do this or that, it is a scam. If people call you up and say they need your help to save the world, it is a scam, And
And
I
ask for
hate
help.
scamsters. I hate these scamsters. The point is that if you hear it, even if you do, God forbid, please don't, but if you do respond, immediately contact somebody and say, was this right? Did I do right?
Somebody you trust.
But yeah, somebody you trust explicitly, not somebody who's given you their number and told you to call them, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, Mike, we're almost out of time, but let's talk about something really important for 2022. Did you have any really great wine in the last month?
Haven't tried it yet, but I received a gift of a bottle of wine from the Biltmore. It's from Sedona, so it's not from the Biltmore, but it's the Biltmore Estates wine collection.
Right, the
Wait,
Biltmore, that's
uh,
North Carolina.
Carolina, but it's coming from Sonoma, the wine
What
itself.
I'm saying, the Biltmore is the like
Vanderbilt's
Asheville,
home.
North Carolina, or something like that.
Somewhere down there. I haven't been there.
Somewhere down there. Yeah, well, I think that's a great one. I was at a nice restaurant last night and I had a Mount Verdier Cabernet Sauvignon. It was excellent. I enjoyed it tremendously.
Oh, very
I've
good.
not seen that before, I
Yeah.
don't think it was one of the best Cabernets I've ever had, but it was definitely excellent. Mount Verdier.
So for this year, I would go with Blue Eyed Boy, which is from the Molly Dooker, the Australian.
I've got a bottle right here in my wine cooler. It sits right there beside me at all times, and you gave it to me, matter of fact.
I did.
I'm going to have to open it, but does it age well? Should I keep it for a while longer?
I don't know. It doesn't age at our house.
It never lasts long in his house,
No.
So anyway, well, looking forward to 2022. This is Drew Tignanelli saying God bless.